The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and
Well, hello. Welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip.
And I'm CJ.
And it's Wednesday in a Riv after a Labor Day weekend. I hope everybody had a nice Labor Day and remembered what that day is supposed to signify. Labor, which we don't have very much of in Fall River anymore. But I hope you all had a nice weekend. So
yeah, it's the end of summer. You know, that's the unofficial end of summer. And, you know, having the day off was, you know, for me, it was irrelevant because I couldn't go anywhere. You know, I'm stuck in the house. But people forget what it is. You know, I think it's a day on the
it's a day off. That's what it is. It's just a day off.
Barbecues and, you know.
They forget about the people who died for the labor movement, so the people wouldn't be chained to machines and, you know, and working for 12 cents an hour, 14 hours a day.
Well, no, that's because they work for Walmart now, and it's the same thing all over again.
pretty close, or Amazon. But that segues me into something. We almost had a guest today, but in a way I'm glad we didn't because had a doctor's issue, so they couldn't hear. I know Friday we have Erica Scott Pacheco on scheduled. So hopefully she will make it. Is that correct, CJ?
Yes, she's scheduled for
so
Friday.
We have the third mayoral candidate on Friday, so that's good. But it gives us a little time to talk about you know, just the politics of the elections and how, if you want to change the city, how you really have to do a little bit of research, think a little bit, and you have to a lot of people have to change their perspective because they vote. They vote for a chow mein sandwich. We've said it numerous times. They vote for this. They vote for that. They vote for nice rhetoric and all kinds of things. If I've done this for the city and I've done that for the city. And we continue to say, look around at the city. Do you really believe the city's improved? Doesn't look like it to me. You know, shootings, stabbings, drug issues, problems with the workforce, which gets us into it. We like our viewers, and we like them to comment, and we like to know they're engaged. And we had one of our viewers, our regular viewers, send in a comment or a question, and we always like to respond to questions. So Jared, this is for you. And I think somebody else did too. They asked, on the last show we had Michelle Dion, and we talked about some numerous issues, but especially how we're going to turn Fall River and about the economy in a perspective. And we got on Amazon, so I think I opened with Amazon and said Amazon's a classic example of what doesn't work. But he asked the question about what training, then we got into training, but that was two separate entities. One of them is because Amazon's a classic example of why these things don't work. He said, well, what training does Amazon take? It actually does take some training. It's not the training that's going to keep the long-term jobs. And I think I referred on the last show, and if you want to rewatch it, you can. There are 10 million jobs in this country. That's a federal statistic. It came from the Department of Labor. 10 million jobs unfilled in this nation because of lack of training. And I don't mean just, you know, it's specific training. You don't have to have a PhD. You don't have to have a master's, a bachelor's, or even an associate degree. What you need is trade-specific or occupation-specific training. And this is the problem, and I believed I said it was for medium tech, not high tech, medium tech. And those jobs are lasting. But Amazon does require training. I know someone who was part of the hiring team at Amazon during the holidays, and they even had to waive their high school diploma in an attempt to get enough people to keep up with the holiday rush, and they still had difficulty. Because they do need some training, because the packers need to be able to count. And don't laugh, they actually had people who can't count. You have to be able to, read SKU numbers and codes, and people who are working in the warehouse getting the product or something like that, they have to be able to so there is a training kind of period. It's not a long training, it's kind of on-the-job training, but there is training necessary. It's not like, okay, you're going to press this button to turn a dishwasher on and you're a dishwasher. So it does take it, but then again, that shows why Amazon really is not going to fix the problem. Because as minimal as the training is, we don't have Fall River people who can get jobs there. Because either they can't pass the drug test, or they just can't do the job. It's overwhelming, which is really a horrifying perspective, that job could be overwhelming. And thirdly, and to speak to your comment, Jared, like you said, most of the Fall River workforce is lazy. And, I don't know if it's most, but I agree. We have a lot of people that just don't want to work, just plain don't want to work. And we have a lot of drug addicts, and we have a lot of people who want to do everything but work. I agree. But I think a perspective that's missing now is that we always hear the politicians, and this is all about, we're winding our way back to perspectives and politicians. This all gets back to politicians talking about, hey, we got to bring people, we got a great workforce in Fall River. No, not anymore. No, we don't. All those hard-working, blue-collar sons of mill-working immigrants or first-generation Americans who pulled themselves up by their bootstraps and got a little bit of an education or a little bit of a trade or a little bit of education, they've beat feet to the suburbs. They're living in Somerset, Westport, Swansea, Rehoboth, Dighton, you name it, anywhere but Fall River. So our workforce is not what it used to be. And that workforce is also very limited, because we only have a few, it's not a big pool of people who really want to get trained to get a job. So how do we fix the problem? We get back to listening to politicians. Don't have them con you that if we get another Amazon in here, our problems are being cured, if we get this in here. No, it's about putting people to work. So how do we do that? We take the trainable people and we give them some training to get those people a job. And then what we touched upon when I believe it was mayoral candidate and school committeeman Coogan said about having an incentive program to bring people with actual jobs back into Fall River by having, some kind of almost a pseudo TIF for the regular people like you and I. So it's a very complex problem, and I'm not expecting everybody to understand that we have to bring them back in. We not only have to give them a TIF, we have to get some kind of handle on this influx of drug addicts, on our crime rate. But it would have to be done incrementally, just like we got here. We didn't get here overnight, and we're not going to get out of here overnight. But when you listen to politicians, all this rhetoric is about, don't buy the con, people. Don't buy the con. They've been giving you the same con for the last 20 years, the last 3 mayors. They got statistics, they got this, everything's going great. Look at your streets. I'm not talking about streetscapes where all the friends are working, have businesses. Look at your streets. Look at the crime rate. Look at everything that's going on in the city of Fall River. And then ask your politicians why and what they're going to do differently to turn this city around. Because anybody that tells you we're on a right track to turn this city around economically doesn't understand the concept we were trying to make on the last show, that our economy is driven by people, not businesses. People with jobs. If nobody worked in the city of Fall River, but everybody had a job, this would be a thriving metropolis. And what's my favorite example of that, CJ? Newton.
Exactly. Everything's Newton. Everything's Newton.
Newton doesn't have anything. There's no places except in a retail or restaurant business, hospitality. There's nothing. There's no factories in Newton. There's no Amazon in Newton. And Newton has 10,000 more businesses than Fall River, and it's fundamentally the same size. It has the highest income rate. That's the key. All those people work in Boston, they work in Cambridge, and they come back to the suburbs, and they plant their butts in their $1-million houses, and they go out and spend tons of money.
Don't you wish that could happen in Fall River?
But, you know, we did it on a much smaller scale when we had mills. When everybody was working, we had stores. Every single storefront on Pleasant Street was full. We had stores all over South Main Street. We had restaurants all over the place. And when the jobs disappeared,
so did the businesses.
So did the businesses, because people were working. And not everybody worked in the mills. There were people who worked construction, people worked out of town. But people were working, and that's the key. The key is, listen, do not buy this con. Do not buy this con. Elect people who are willing to do what is right. And stop trying to say we got a quick fix. Because anybody that tells you they got a quick fix and gives you a one-sentence cure to our problems, do not put an X near their name. So with that, I know we want to, it's about not wasting your vote. So we love questions, but I think we have to clarify that. But it shows that our format, obviously, debates are totally useless. Even with 30 minutes, we couldn't clarify things like we just did today. So in a way, I'm glad nobody kind of showed up today. It allowed us to really expand because, look, as hard as we try, in 30 minutes, you still don't have enough time. So when you look at a debate and somebody's got 30 seconds,
yeah, you can't get it.
Don't expect to learn anything about that candidate. It's up to you. When these people are knocking on your door, or you see these people and you can get a chance to talk to them. And thank you, Jared, and everybody else who comments and stuff. We like to hear them. And it opens up the door for us to have a discussion like this and clarify a lot of things. So I'm sure a lot of people think, well, 30 minutes. But even that, you're scratching the surface. So come on, CJ, give me...
Yeah, we hear all the time about these TIFs, okay?
Yeah.
Well, it's about the number of jobs it's going to create. It's about the number of jobs it's going to create. But in the TIFs, it doesn't say they have to be Fall River jobs. That's one of the problems. Secondly, these TIFs are being given for minimum wage jobs. That's not what Fall River needs. Fall River needs more than minimum wage jobs. We need jobs that are going to be able to bring people into the middle class. When you have engineers and people with educations and vocational people who can't find jobs, you got a problem. Why? Because our Fall River politicians keep bringing in what I call dummy jobs. They're dummy jobs, and I'm not saying it's because people are stupid that do them. They're dummy jobs because they're just window dressing. Okay, I got 1,500 jobs for Fall River, but they're all minimum wage, and then it's not very few people from Fall River. What good is that going to do Fall River? What good?
You're absolutely right. And what a lot of people don't look at, how many TIFs have we given? We've been giving out TIFs for, God, every time you turn around, every business. I mean, look, let's face it, the one that really still disturbs me is Ocean State Job Lot.
Yeah.
Here's a thriving business, a business that was packed every time you walked in that store, in that little plaza. They got enough money to go buy a brand new building, and you give them a TIF. Look, Fall River is a right place for low-wage consumers, and that's Ocean State Job Lot was doing fine. They didn't need a TIF, and they weren't going anywhere. Where are they going to move? To Tiverton? No, forget it. And that's as you said, that's crazy. And let's look at the TIFs again. How successful have TIFs been? You said it. You hit it right on the nose. You get low-wage jobs last hired, first fired types of jobs.
Yep.
They stay here till the TIF runs out. They're gone when it's over, and all those people are out of work again. And the few people that do get jobs, and you hit it again on the head. You said, well, we got people that get trades, they get educations, they get everything. And that's the other part of this puzzle that nobody, and no politician ever, they don't care. Every time one of your city councilors goes, I approve this TIF for a business. I approve this TIF for a business. I approve this TIF for a business. Screw the taxpayer. Screw the residential taxpayer. Screw the residential taxpayer. And what are they saying? They're saying, when you get educated, move out.
Yeah.
Why should you live in a city full of druggies, full of crime, and you're going to pay all kinds of fees and taxes to live in a city that's #1 in crime in the state and second in New England? We got a drug agency trying to bring even more in. We're the drug warehouse of Massachusetts. And you want these people to stay in Fall River. That's why I say when you see a politician that doesn't talk about giving the taxpayer some relief, getting incentives for people to move and stay in Fall River, I believe, because I have a pretty damn good memory, I do believe when we made the presentation on the school.
An override. So again, you all called us liars. A lot of you people out there called us liars. We told you it was an override.
Including my buddy, and I'm still waiting to see him, Rick Olivera.
Yeah.
I don't know where he disappeared to with that ambush, but I'm still waiting because it is an override. And if you read the law, it says it.
Right.
All those other forms of overrides, they're just overrides in a different fashion. That's all. It's not just but you look at these things and you see that this problem is very, very complex, because you want to keep people in Fall River, but you see TIFs for the businesses, and screw the taxpayer. And these are the people you want to vote in with their grandiose ideas about if we, it's like, it reminds me of that movie with Kevin Costner. Was it Build It and They Shall Come?
Field of Dreams.
Field of Dreams. Yeah, no, this isn't heaven, it's Iowa. No, this isn't hell, it's Fall River. So but the thing is, that's the key. The key is that, and I get back to the point, during our presentation on our opposition to the override, which we called it what it was, I believe I cited a statistic about the retention of college-educated people in this city. And it was the lowest in the state. So what does that statistic show you? That anybody that gets educated and can get a good job gets the hell out of Dodge. So you think some politician the next politician you see that says, I'm going to try to hold down the taxes, hold down the fees, the people are going to be a priority, I'm going to try to get incentives to have people, not druggies, let's not build another 17 wings on Star and bring in people who don't do anything for the economy, does plenty for their paychecks at Star, but it doesn't do anything for the economy. But let's look at a councilor who says, I'm going to try to give some relief to the taxpayer, bring some incentives to bring people in. Remember when Detroit was selling houses for $1?
Yep. Yeah.
You could buy a house in Detroit, Michigan for $1. And guess what? Virtually nobody bought them. Why? There's the proof. Nobody wanted to live in that crap hole. Full of crime, full of drugs. Even for $1, they wouldn't buy a house. So it's a multifaceted problem, but it starts by electing the people who know what the problem is, because guess what? You can't cure a disease unless you know what the disease is that you're treating.
This is true. And when you think about it, I mean, one of the things I liked about the mayor's presentation here, I mean, he seemed to be very honest to the viewer on most items, especially when he called the debt exclusion an override, okay? And the thing that really got me was when he said, all the TIF does is reallocate the taxes It just moves it somewhere else. Where does it move it? What have we been saying a TIF does? It moves it over to us, the taxpayer. And that's why, and then people say, oh, you're all against tax TIFs, you're all against this, aren't you for business? No, I'm for me. Just like that business is asking for that TIF because they're for them, I'm all for me. I want my taxes to stay stable. I don't want to be paying more in taxes because Amazon got a $10 million TIF. Our TIFs are no longer $200,000, $300,000. We're in the millions of dollars on these TIFs now. Millions. Walmart got a TIF. Sam's Club got a TIF, and they left.
Yeah.
And they left. They said, we're not going to wait. We'll pay the TIF money back. We're getting out of Dodge. Do you know that at Sam's Club, the biggest problem they had was TV sets were walking out the front door. Literally walking out the front door. People would pick it up off the display and walk it out the door. They would
since it was out, they thought it was free.
Exactly, exactly. They would walk out the door with more merchandise than they sold, and that was the big problem. And it's that way at the Walmart. The Walmart, even with all the camera crews, even with police officers present, and the people at the doors, which, by the way, you know, they're checking everyone's receipts. They legally can't do that. They can't say that they can legally do it. That's their policy. That's not a law. So don't let them sell you, you know, that line of bull. But it shows you how desperate Fall River is. Because the politicians say, we need to give this TIF to get this business here so we can create 200 jobs.
Yeah, and how many of those businessmen don't live in Fall River? Matook's selling $500 towels.
Right.
We've talked about that ad nauseum. But you got a place that deals to the elite of society. They're getting TIFs to work, you know, for people in Fall River. They don't employ that many people. Realistically, they're making money. The taxes they save is more than they spend on their employees. So, you know, does business really help Fall River like that? Not really. The thing is, you'd have to employ the entire city. This problem does not, and businesses go in, and we just saw on the news yesterday about a Fall River businessman, you know, who lives in another state. So money. They live in other states. They live in other communities, and businesses want. They're making a profit already, and they want a TIF to make more profit. And that's the thing that disturbs me. The thing that disturbs me, you're shifting it to residents in a city that has the lowest per capita income in the state. You don't think that's doing damage to the economy, all these TIFs? That's why everybody on a council that votes for TIFs shouldn't be voted for, period. That's it. It is not. And if you're going to have a TIF, I would agree with a TIF. Don't give them a TIF up front. Let them pay the full boat. Back end load the TIF. Give them a 10-year TIF and say you're going to start getting your tax break in the 6th year. Pay your taxes up front. These are all profit-making businesses. You don't think Amazon can afford their taxes? But they want every single penny. And that's the problem. You know,
yeah, it's not like Jeff Bezos doesn't have enough money already.
Yeah.
Even after he was cleaned out by his wife in the divorce, he still has more money than God.
That's right. So, you know, we talk about this because it's so important. This is critical. There's no primary for city council. There's no primary. Well, the school committee, forget about the school committee. I mean, it's just almost almost a non-election. But look, we got people running for the council, and shame on them for not being out in the community. Shame on them for not running to this show and trying to get out of here 2 or 3 times. Because we need people with new ideas, with a new perspective. Because if you think this council is working for you, look at their record on the TIFs. Look at their record about shifting the tax burden and the fee burden. They do a lot of talking, but they don't come through when it comes to the votes. And if you can show me somebody who votes consistently against fees and taxes and against TIFs, because it's the same old stuff. It's the psychology. The businessmen go and whine, oh, we can't stay here. We'll see you later. That's called capitalism. Because why can't you stay here? Because you're taking money away from the people who already can't buy what you sell. So your little profit is going to be gone anyway, because once you get that tax break, it gets shifted to me. I can't afford to buy your stuff anymore. It may seem complicated, but it isn't. It's just real simple. If you got $2 in your wallet, you can't go for an $8 burger at a restaurant. You can't go down to a high-end restaurant where they charge you $8 for a hamburger and have a hamburger. You got to go eat off the dollar meal. So, you know, we have people on, we have candidates on, obviously the mayoral candidate, and you talked about it. The mayor called it an override. He also didn't refute the fact when I said when he got rid of the fee, the fee and the bags, it was political, because he admitted that publicly, and I did mention that. But, you know, he had a lot of statistics. But remember, it's like people who now, well, you know what gets me? There are a lot of Trump haters in this area. And when he talks about the economy, the first thing they say is, hey, I don't want to hear that. I'm not doing any better. The average person isn't doing any better. It's big businesses that are doing better. Well, it's the same thing at Fall River, dum-dums. The mayor can sit here and spout out all of this and how much money and the companies and we're spending money on streetscapes to bring in money. From where? From who? What did we have last year in tourism? Do we have a number? What did we get, 12 tourists?
Probably.
We probably had relatives in Fall River, or they stopped by to pick up chow mein and Charisse. But the reality is, it's the same thing here. The businesses are doing well, and the council's helping them do well, and we're getting killed.
Well,
so if you don't like Trump, you shouldn't like our city council.
You shouldn't like any of our elected officials.
That's right.
I mean, honestly. But, you know, the people in Fall River, it's a herd mentality. It really is a herd mentality. They all of a sudden fall in line. You just look at Leo. I have a free chow mein sandwich for you. Just look at how many people show up. They all fall in line, and then they all go and vote for him. You know? It's the same thing with Jazel. You have his supporters. When he was indicted for those alleged violations, his supporters said, no, he's not indicted. That's a made-up lie. They were saying it was a lie even before he was arrested for the indictment, because it's a herd mentality. They all just see what they want to see, and they keep moving along. I mean, if you ever see a herd of buffalo, once they start going, they don't stop.
I'm not even
takes
sure.
one. It only takes one to start running, and they all follow along with it.
I think actually it's even more than that. I think you said it when you created one of my favorite zombies, because they're like zombies. They're not thinking. To them, it's almost like a cult. That, you know, whatever is said is the absolute truth.
Yeah.
You know, it's like the Jehovah's Witnesses saying that their interpretation of the Bible is the only one that's accurate. Well, guess what? Every other Christian sect thinks their interpretation of the Bible is correct too.
Right.
So, and the non-Christians say that their interpretation of religion is the same. So, but what's the moral to this story? I think we clarified a lot of things today, which was good. The moral of this story is educate yourself, ask questions, and be informed. And remember, it's not businesses or politicians that'll cure Fall River. It's you and the way you vote.
That's it. Your vote counts. Hey, tomorrow there'll be a debate here on Channel 95. It'll also air on Facebook, on FRC Media's page, and on Fall River Reporter's page. Listen to it. I mean, you're only going to get it bits and pieces, but...
Is it a debate, or is it in Fall River a debate?
I think it's going to be a debate.
Okay.
Hey, have a great day, everyone, and we'll see you on Friday with Erica Scott Pacheco. Bye-bye.